And greetings and respect. Muhammad Suleiman Ahmadzai is here with a new session for you, friends. Welcome to the new session of Photo Viewer. Yesterday, we worked through this button here completely. There was a button here that we said we would cover in the next video, God willing. We have something called Edit Image or Image Editor settings, which I will also explain to you. There, we have some settings or commands that allow us to apply certain editing options to the photo. It's one of the very useful and important options. There was a time when, even for very minor tasks, we would go to Photoshop or some other photo editing programs to edit them. But now, we can even do this right in Windows itself. We don't need programs like Photoshop and so on anymore. Alright, look, to open Edit Image, we have different methods. Either we click on this icon up here, or we use the shortcut by pressing Ctrl+E. Whenever we press the Ctrl and E keys together, it automatically opens the Edit Image window for us. When we enter the image, we see that there are different editing tabs here, and we'll go through each tab one by one. We have a tab like Crop. We have a tab like Adjustment. We have a tab like Filter. We have a tab like Markups and a tab like Retouch, and we'll work with all of them as needed. We also call these tabs in English: Crop tab, Adjustment tab, Filter tab, Markup tab, Retouch tab. So, the first tab that we've named Crop in English means to cut, trim, or slice. For example, if we want to cut out a part of a photo to fit different sizes, we can use the Crop section. Alright, try to notice that in the Crop tab, we have a small toolbar here, a few buttons down here, and a few more buttons over here that we're going to go over for you. So, in this small toolbar, we have several buttons. First, we have a tool called Zoom In and Zoom Out. Whenever we click on this button, it zooms in on our image to the scale we need. With Zoom Out, what can we do to the image again? We can zoom out. Here, it shows us the percentage or the zoom level. Here, it displays the actual size. In some of these views, it doesn't work. For example, if we're in some other views where the image is very zoomed in. For instance, we see here that our image is very zoomed in. Instead of zooming out step by step, we just click once here. What does actual size or fit to window do for us? This brings the image back to its original size. Meaning, the image zooms out so much that we don't need to zoom out 5 or 10 times, for example. Well, in crop modes, it's usually disabled. Now, here we have something called Undo and Redo. So far, you've done one action. You just want to go forward one step. We have a button like Undo, and another button called Redo. Undo takes you one step back. Redo takes you one step forward. You can also do this using the shortcuts Ctrl+Z and Ctrl+Y. But for example, if we've made a lot of changes to the image and want to completely return it to its original state. Again, for example, we've done several steps. Instead of saying undo 3 or 4 times, we just say reset once and click on reset here. The image will return to its previous state. Alright, after the small toolbar down here, we also have some other buttons. First, if we want to rotate our image to different angles, for example, if we click on this at the top, the image will rotate 90 degrees to the right. If we want to rotate it 90 degrees to the right, like the direction of a clock, in English this is called clockwise. If we want to rotate it in the opposite direction of the clock, 90 degrees to the left, we can use this. Counterclockwise, you see, rotating in the opposite direction of the clock is called counterclockwise, and rotating in the direction of the clock is called clockwise. Now, here we have 2 more buttons. For example, it's used for flipping. If we want to flip the image horizontally, we click on Flip Image Horizontally. You see, what does it do for us horizontally? It flips it, meaning it reverses it horizontally. If we want to flip the image vertically, we click on Flip Image Vertically here. What does it do to the image vertically? It flips it. Okay, if we want to crop this, we click here on Free. What opens up for us when we click on this? Previously created frames will open up. For example, you might want this photo to be in the 16:9 format, like a picture taken with a big camera. For instance, this is called 16:9. But when, for example, you need photos for official work in a government office, like if you need a photo for a passport, the photo is different from the one for a visa. For example, we need different types of photos. For official purposes, we need different kinds of photos. For some, we need photos in 4:5 format. For others, for example, we need photos in 3:4 format. For some, for example, we need 5:4 photos. For others, for example, we need 5:5 photos. These frames are already prepared here in advance. For example, if you need it for your official work, like 3:4, this frame is available. Later on, you zoom in a bit on the photos for the 3:4, so that officially, for example, when you print it, only this much of the photo is used, meaning you crop it, and then you can print it. Or, for example, you can choose the 5:4 format. This 5:4 frame is used for passports, visas, and other similar purposes. We can, for example, use different sizes. We have frames like 16:9, which are for mobile. Or, for example, we have 9:16 or 16:9. Whichever one we want, we first select the template, and then we fit the photo inside that template. If, for example, we select original here, it shows the photo in its original state. But if we don't want to use these built-in templates, and we want to create our own template to use, we just click on Free at the top again. You can create your own custom template. At that point, it asks which part of the template you need for your work. From these buttons that are placed around it. These are called sizing points. You use these buttons to adjust your photo to the size you need in that template. You make it fit. You can also zoom in on the photo using these. For example, you can zoom in and zoom out by scrolling the mouse wheel. Whenever you use the mouse wheel, the part you want will zoom in for you, and it follows the mouse as well. When you have zoomed in, hold down the left mouse button. You can move it in any direction. You place it in that frame, in that section. Well, after the photo is placed in that specific frame, the same frame we needed and wanted, why do we click down here? Done. When we click on Done, your photo is ready to be saved. When we crop, these are the parts that will be deleted and removed. Alright, after this, we have several buttons. If we didn't want this action to be done, well, we just click Cancel. But if we do want to proceed and save the photo, it shows us two options here. One is Save, and the other is Save as Copy. If we choose Save, the changes you make will be saved directly on the original photo. That means the cropping you do will be applied to the original, authentic photo itself. But let's say we don't want to touch the original photo, we just want to save a copy of it. So, in that case, we click on Save as Copy. This will open up the Save dialog for us. It asks us where we want to save it. We select the location as well. Let's say I want to save this photo on the desktop. For example, we can name it MIPIC or just save it. When we name it MIPICture and save it, a new copy is saved. See, the photo automatically opened as well. The original photo hasn't been affected, the original is still in its place. For example, if we go to the folder where the original photos were located, we can see that our new photo is there and the original photo hasn't been damaged at all. It saved a copy of it for us, on the desktop, meaning the file is ready for official printing. Alright, try to come back after the crop section, we'll return again. In the control section, we press this. We sit inside the section. After the crop section, we have something called Adjustment. Inside Adjustment, which is available, try to note that this toolbar is repetitive. The Save buttons are also repetitive buttons. In this section, in this panel that is opened on the right side, there are several buttons. Here, above the color, we can work. That means we can adjust the color of the photo. In that year, we can increase the brightness of the photo or make it darker. When it's set to 0, nothing changes. We can select the exposure. We can choose what level it should be, and we can select the contrast. We can choose the amount of color usage. Highlights, for example, different parts that are highlights in the color, we can select those. Shadow, for example, try to make the darker areas even darker. If we want, the shadow can be completely removed. Now, this part of the photo is dark. In some places, we have shadow or shade. Well, I'll say we don't want the shadow either. Vignette, for example, applies a darkness to the four corners of the photo. This is a black frame. You can see that in these parts of the photo, a black frame or ring is applied so that the photo gets a professional look. If we go the opposite way, those same areas become light. That is, the ring or circle that is applied around the photo will be white. You see, it's black, white, black, it turns white. If we don't want it, well, I'll just set it back to 0. In the color section, for example, we can adjust the saturation. We can tweak the different colors here. We can ignore making it white or just increase the color intensity as much as we want. We say, let it be at this level. Now, let's say we want our photo to have a warm or cool tone. For example, to have a warm look, or, for instance, to have a cold look. We can select those options. Which part should the tone affect? For example, let it be warm, let it be cold. Then, in the play tint section, we have options. We can, for example, choose the colors so that pinkish colors are more visible in the photo, or red colors, or the opposite. Or, for example, green and blue colors are more noticeable. We see a lot of green color, for instance. Or we see a lot of pink or red color. We can select those as well. After making changes, we can either click on Save or Save Copy. In the Filter Category section, or in the Filter tab, when we come to the Filter section. Just like on mobile phones, we have filters here as well. When we capture a photo, we only have one image. Then, we just click on the filter buttons. Here you can see there are different filters. Whenever I click on any filter, that filter gets applied to our photo. We can also adjust the intensity of the filter, making it stronger or weaker. When we click on each one, we can see how the different filters affect our photo. It's customizable, and each one is a specific filter that displays our photo in its own way. If you want to see your original photo again and don't want to apply any filter, you just select this option. If you want the original, or if you want it to automatically enhance your photo based on its own analysis, click on Auto Enhance. It takes a few seconds. It processes and automatically enhances your photo. You can then adjust the intensity. Well, if you don't want it, you can always choose the original. Or you can uncheck Auto Enhance again to disable it. In the Markup tab, we can, for example, write on the photo. For example, these buttons here are for drawing lines. These buttons are also for drawing lines. It just brings a few buttons here for us. For example, we have different pens here that we can use. Whichever pen you choose, you can select its thickness here, whether you want it to be thick or thin. You choose the thickness of the lines you select, and you also pick their color. There are also line tools over there. For example, here we can use this line tool. Polyline is a free line. You use it by moving it like a pen. On both ends, try to make sure the tips aren't like arrow keys or arrows. If we select this one again, it's a line too, also in free form, but one end of it is like an arrow key. This part of it is like an arrow. And if I had selected this one, then both ends would look like this when you draw the line. Both ends look cool, like arrow keys. You see, both ends are arrow-shaped. Or, for example, we could use different colors. For example, we can also use straight lines here. Let's select this again. We choose its color. You can also see the straight lines. It's a straight line, but it doesn't have arrow keys. It's not arrow-shaped. Or, for example, we can say the line should be straight but have arrow keys. One end should be arrow-shaped. Or, for example, we can set it to double arrow, so it has arrows on both ends. After this, if we want to delete the lines, if we want to delete just one, we can click on Remove Stroke. By clicking on it, that specific line will be removed. But if we wanted to erase everything from the whole image, for example, we can click on this, Clear All Inks. Or instead of that, we could click on Reset. Well, when you select Clear All Inks, only the colors are erased. But if you choose Reset, any changes you've made across all these tabs will be reset. Everything will be wiped out. Alright, the last tab here is called Research, which is a very important tab. It's actually one of my favorite tabs, and I'm really happy about it. I really want to see how this tab does such a major and important job for us. Even though for these little tasks we've done, we used to go to Photoshop just for these minor things. But for now, we're doing this right inside Windows. There's no need for Photoshop. You can do it within Photo Viewer or Windows' own Image Viewer. Do you see what the Retouch section does? We can't work with this photo. For example, you can see that in this image, there's no blemish, no pimple, nothing like that. I'll open another photo for you. We'll use that photo as an example. So, try to understand what the Retouch section does. It's for when we have photos like this one, for example, where there are some spots. There are moles. For example, there are blemishes. In English, we call it a pimple. For instance, if we look at these photos, there are also some blemishes or pimples. How can we remove these spots? This is something that's usually done in photography. You might have noticed that when you go to get your photos taken, before the photographer prints the photo, they go through this same procedure. First, with the procedure we did earlier, the photo is cropped, cut to the size we want. For example, we tell them we need a 3x4, or maybe a 5x5, or a 5x4. First, I fit the frame to those dimensions, just like we did before. After that, some touch-ups are done on the photo. Of course, those edits are done in Photoshop. Well, if someone doesn't have Photoshop, they can use Windows. Then, get it ready for printing. So, how can we, for example, remove these spots? We go into the Edit Photo section, or we press Ctrl+E, which takes us to the Edit Image section. Then we go to the Retouch tab. So, try that when we click here on the photo, it shows us an oval or a circle like this, and it automatically fixes that part. You can choose the size of this circle from here, whether it should be small or large. Whatever size you want the circle to be, just that circle. We choose it based on that pimple, based on that blemish. For example, we say this size is more accurate. Now, when we click on that blemish, what does it do with AI? I mean with the help of AI. It removes that pimple. Basically, it copies the color from the four sides around it. What does it do on top of that blemish? It pastes, and on every spot we click, we see that this procedure is done well. We used to go to Photoshop for these kinds of tasks and do the same thing there, which, in one way or another, used to take up a lot of our time. Alright, try out some other parts as well. Here, we need to zoom in on the photo a little. Of course, as you saw earlier, here you can zoom in, zoom out, or go to the actual size to see the photo in its original dimensions. Or you can just scroll the mouse wheel. Scroll the mouse wheel like this, and it will zoom in for you. Another thing is, when you zoom in, how can you move the photo around? You do that with the right mouse click. Hold down the right mouse button. This way, you can move to any different part of the photo. You zoom in. So after you've zoomed in, you can still move it around with the right click. Now, since we've zoomed in on our photo, the steps become even smaller. We select this. For example, there were a few more pimples left here that we want to remove as well. Well, this one is a bit big. Let's make it smaller for the lower part. Now, try to get our photo to look like this. That is, earlier we said that in this photo, for example, there were blemishes or moles. There are still some moles left. You can see, for example, in this area, there are still some moles. If we want, we can remove these just like we did. Different spots. For this photo, it got completely cleaned up. Now, I'll save this photo so you can see how much the original photo was different from this one. I'm choosing Save as Copy. We won't touch the original photo. I'm telling it to save this for you on the desktop. For example, name it New. We've saved it. Now, let's exit the program. Try to notice, on the desktop it shows us two photos. I'll open both the original for you and also the new photo for you. We'll put both of them side by side so you can see. Now, try to notice how many pimples or blemishes there were in the original photo. And in the second photo, we made a clean, clear image, without having used Photoshop or any big photo editing programs. We could have done this just using the simple options in Windows itself. Alright, we'll continue with the rest of Photo Viewer in the next videos. And I kindly ask you, dear friends, if you found the videos helpful, please like them to support us and help the channel grow. Subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next sessions. Goodbye.